It's another Roto Hackers podcast. We are your unauthorized purveyors of fantasy information, news, and general entertainment. My name is Judah Buddha. I'm here with It's Jared. It can only be Jared. Oh, I can't get it.
Trying to one up AJ there.
The one and only stud. And unfortunately, AJ Herschel, the kid, is on assignment and cannot be with us. So it's just the two of us, buddy. You ready to do this second to last for most week of fantasy football? How are you feeling about fantasy football to this point?
This is always the time of year where my emotions, like I feel like, I'll never experience what it's like to be pregnant, or at least hopefully not. Otherwise, something's gone horribly wrong. But I feel like my emotional swings during this time in the fantasy football season are probably somewhere on that level, because I'm just like, I hate fantasy football. I started out at the beginning of the year, I'm like, yes, fantasy football is here. I can't wait. I'm going to draft way too many teams. And then you get to this time of year and I'm just like, I hate it. I just want it to be done. And then, but also, like, once I get through week 14 and it's playoff time, there's also sort of like a little bit of a calm. Yeah. It's like, okay, so I had 17 teams this year and I got 13 into the playoffs. So that's pretty good. That's 76%. You're getting in a little above 76%. And so it's kind of like, okay, I got them all there. You just do your best. You set your lineup and you hope things go well. But I mean, now it comes down to, 2 weeks, but this is for me, the most important week, because this is where you can, really make money with it if you play Yahoo's Pro Leagues. So,
you only play Yahoo Pro Leagues, right?
Yeah, that's all I got. All 17 teams. Yep.
Wow.
So, so it's sort of a mix of calm and enjoying it, but also hating it and also nervous. And
when you say hating it, you just mean I don't know. For me, it's just I'm tired of it. At this point.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. I'm tired. I'm just tired of it. So
yes, it is fun though. Next year I won't have as many leagues. I did too many this year and too many variants. I'm just gonna stick to normal, straightforward fantasy.
You mean too many variants in terms of league type?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had I guess I'll still be part of the Dynasty League I'm in, but I was in a Guillotine League where, that was crazy.
No, that's not for me.
And then I was in a IDP League, and I think
also no.
I stopped looking at that because it was like a 16-team league and a IDP League. It was just no. Yeah. I got blown out so many times in that league because I don't know defensive players.
Yeah, it's oh my gosh, that'd be way too much. It's enough just to keep up with offensive players.
Yeah, so I'm with you. Of course, I'm Judah Buddha, and I always tell people to stay zen. I feel pretty zen at this point.
Yeah, me too.
Except for one league where if Aaron beats me one more time, I don't think I've beat him maybe ever. Both times I played him, I think I beat him once this season, but nobody cares about that. What people care about is NFL football and fantasy that goes along with it. What are some of the implications, some of the things that you drew from last weekend?
Man, it was just it was a slaughterhouse for wide receivers, especially. It was just murderer's row. I mean, Mike Evans, DJ Chark, Alshon Jeffrey, Calvin Ridley. If I can pull up my little list here.
Marvin Jones, you
just today, Marvin Jones, Devontae Parker got a concussion, so he missed most of that game. Not sure if he'll be back this week or not. He's got a great matchup with the Giants, and in my biggest money league, he's one of my 2 starting receivers. So get well soon, Devontae Parker. So yeah, and then, I mean, that was just receivers. And then you had, running backs going down. You had Rashad Penny, Josh Jacobs. We don't know if he's going to play again or not. The Bucks just signed Rod Smith to their. I'm sorry, the Raiders. Raiders are kind of like Bucks. They like their little. They look like their little logo there.
Oh yeah.
So the Raiders just signed Rod Smith. So that's, people are wondering, like, okay, is this, an indication that he's not going to play? Which, I don't know why you would play him.
Well, I mean, I have a suspicion they will. It's, what's the coach's name?
John Gruden.
Yeah, I mean, it's John Gruden. He's all about this like narrative stuff. Hey, Claudio Jenkins, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Claudio.
Also, on top of that, it's like he's going for Rookie of the Year, and I think he's a fighter. I think John Gruden is the kind that wants to see, I think he puts a lot of stock in that, juju type stuff. I don't know.
I guess, but like, fractured shoulder, man. You're a rookie. It's time. I'm sure he wants to play. I saw a thing that said that he was really upset that they wouldn't let him play last week. So I mean, I get it coming from him, but he's a young player. You got to have the adults in the room, like.
Yeah, but is John Gruden an adult?
Yeah, I don't know if there are, adults in the room, and maybe Mike Mayock, the GM up in Oakland. But that would just be so dumb to play him. I mean, he's been so great for you. Yeah. Why risk it in a season where you're not going to make the playoffs? So I don't know. We'll see. I picked up DeAndre Washington in like half my leagues when he went down. So I've got a little bit invested in him not playing the rest of the year. So that would actually help me too. I might be a little bit biased here.
Well, the other thing that worries me, we'll get into that. So, any other takeaways other than injuries? Anything positive we can draw out of week 14? I can't believe we're in week 15 already. So anything you could draw positive out of the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, there were positives. It's all kind of like the injuries just stood out in my mind so much that I think like they're just kind of overwhelming everything else. I mean,
the positive side of the injuries, we talked about. Both of us are big Galladay owners. You've got Galladay and Godwin probably getting a lot more touches, right? No more second banana stealing from them, or first banana in the case of Godwin.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys I think that are replacing the injured players are stout enough to take away some attention, at least I would say.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe if there's a positive out there, I feel like normally the fantasy waiver wire is just a wasteland going into week 15 normally. I feel like it's pretty good this week in terms. I mean, now some people, you may just be trying to pick up a guy to replace the guy you just lost. But if you're another team looking for a guy, then you might be able to. Maybe you didn't own Josh Jacobs, but you might be able to get DeAndre Washington, or you might be able to pick up AJ Brown or Darius Slayton, or somebody. So I think, and in terms of certain things like the Rashad Penny injury, I think that clarifies that backfield.
Whereas, sure. If you're a Carson owner, you're like, sorry about Penny, but thank you.
Right. I mean, I had I have a good bit of stock in Carson, and so I was actually, and I had Penny in some of those leagues, but I was going to start both of them because they play Carolina, and Carolina is just the worst possible run defense. So, I was going to start, both of them over, another guy. And I think now it clarifies to where, Carson's the guy, and then I can start, my other flex as usual. So
Now, Carolina has been a sieve for running backs, but I would say there's a little bit of difference whenever Carolina plays the Seattle. I almost said Seattle Supersonic. Whenever they play Seattle, Seahawks. That's what it is. It's almost like all bets are off. Like in the past, they've played each other so much. I feel like, and they're not even divisional rivals. It's just there's something. Are they? No, right?
no, I guess maybe what I'm thinking back to is they played each other in the playoffs. Wasn't that like a year or two ago, like a couple years ago, that they played each other in the playoffs?
Well, last year I think they played each other in the regular season,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe it was the year before. But every time they play each other, it's like a 10-point game.
I think they're similar teams, or they have been. I'm not sure as much now, but I mean, you think about like,
Well, they both run first.
yeah, they both run first. They both had mobile quarterbacks. Of course, that's changed now with Cam being out. Kind of hard-nosed defenses. Carolina is not, maybe known quite as much for defense the way Seattle is, but guys like Luke Kuechly on that defense. Carolina's just lost. They've lost their front. They're just gaping holes in that run defense. So yeah, I think there's a lot of similarities between the two teams.
And is there any chance of North Carolina getting into the playoffs?
No, they're done. Yeah,
They're done.
NFC is, you are really going to have.
They're the only division that has, or what do you call it? Division, right?
The conference.
Conference,
the
they're only
NFC,
conference.
Yeah.
They're the only conference that has like winners that are up in the 10 wins already, right?
Yeah, except for the NFC East, where the NFC East is trash. Just the Cowboys and the Eagles are both, I think, 6 and 7.
Oh, that's right.
And
It's split.
it's just the garbage division. And then you've got, the NFC South is typically competitive, and it was there for a while before the Saints pulled away. But
now it is again, kind of.
Not the South, because like Falcons, Bucks, Panthers, they're no chance there. So it's just the Saints. The North, the North is always pretty competitive and is again. And then the West, especially where you've got Seattle, San Francisco, and the Rams.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're really going to have a good record to get into the playoffs, unless you're in the NFC East, in which case it might be 7-9. Like 7-9 might get you into the playoffs in the NFC East.
Wow. And you might get in the playoffs.
You might, and have a home game. Yeah. It's crazy.
All right. So AJ says, thoughts on last week. Mike Tomlin. He's on his third quarterback. Third running back. Oh, sorry. Yeah, string quarterback. Third string running back, and has one of the best defenses in the NFL. Mad respect to him.
He's coaching better with worse players now. Like, it's like before he had all this talent and it just like played down to competition. And now,
well, I think it's because he's kind of a macho guy.
Yeah.
And if he has big personalities, he gets in these struggles, like if he has guys who are just like, whatever, like, what do you think?
I have no idea. It was just, I mean, maybe before it had to do with the personalities there in Pittsburgh. I mean, you think about everything that we know about Antonio Brown.
Oh my gosh.
And then plus, I mean, Le'Veon Bell, I mean, he was the drama last year, sitting out all of last season.
He got rid of the drama.
They got rid of the drama. And, if you look at the way most winning football teams are crafted, they don't have a lot of diva skill players like the Patriots. The Patriots have kind of gone too far to that extreme now, to where they've just got, they just don't have enough talent.
Yeah.
But teams always, you rarely see teams that have really an elite running back or an elite wide receiver. And I mean, like, really elite, like top 5 sort of guy. you don't see a lot of those teams, winning Super Bowls. I mean, how many Super Bowl rings does Julio Jones have? How many Super Bowl rings does DeAndre Hopkins have? How many Super Bowl rings does Antonio Brown have? And it's kind of the same way with running backs. So, you don't want drama, and generally, if you've got one of those elite guys, they're a lot of times gonna bring it. So
it is true. Well, yeah. So he continues and says, "The Packers' run defense is a joke." I'm gonna say that in a snotty voice. I don't know if that's true. R.I.P. to Darius Geis, Calvin Ridley, Mike Evans. Drew Brees is incredible. Shout out to Dolphins kicker Jason Sanders for carrying his team. My boy Austin Eckler had the game of his life. I'm sorry, Eli Manning. Carson Wentz just barely outplayed you. Goff stunned us all. And if Ryan Tannehill started the season, he is right next to Lamar Jackson as MVP candidate. I don't know about that, but maybe.
The way if you carried his performance from the last several games across the season, he would be. I mean, but you don't know that would have happened. You don't know. I mean, you don't know if this is just a small sample size. But I don't know. I think it's possible that Tannehill might be for real.
Well, the thing is he's not. It's not like he's not a rookie. We've seen him do well before.
Right.
The problem before
was the Dolphins.
Was the Dolphins one, and health. He wasn't always very healthy.
Yeah, he had some health injuries or some health problems.
Yeah. So let's get in. Unless you have, I guess my takeaways. I guess we already kind of talked about them. I did go back and watch some film on Mostert. And is it Mostert? No, on
San Francisco's running back is Mostert.
Yeah, Mostert. It was either Mostert or it was DeAndre Washington, but I think it was Mostert. Yeah, it was Mostert. And he just had some, that offensive line really helped him out. His touchdown was kind of fluky.
Yeah.
In the sense, he put some beast mode into that last, push.
Yeah.
He definitely has some beastiness in him, but if you look at it from the end zone perspective, he's got huge gaps between him and the defense.
Well, I wonder, a lot of that too is probably, not just the line, but if there's that big of a gap, then probably the scheme.
Yeah.
And really that's why at one point in the season I was trading for Tevin Coleman, and then fortunately I was able to dump him. Because I thought okay, look, like you and I have said, he's not good. He is just a straight line runner, and injury prone and everything else. But if they're going to go with him, then, I think Shanahan is good enough to, get him some opportunities. And then it ended up Coleman's ineptitude ended up winning out over that. And so then they've, had gone more to Breida, and then finally have gone to Mostert. It looks like maybe they stick with him.
Well, maybe they do. I'm worried though. There's still three guys. This is they're playing the Falcons, who have a pretty stiff run defense. Say what you will about their defense. I don't know what anybody can say about them, because it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde with their defense.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell what they are, but one thing is for sure is when they turn it on, they have a stout defense.
Yeah. Yeah.
A run defense.
Right. But, the Saints do too. The Saints came in with a top 5 run defense. And so, but San Francisco, it's kind of sort of a blessing and a curse to where, San Francisco has a lot of ways they can beat you, but that also means San Francisco has a lot of ways they can beat you. And so it's hard to rely on, other than Kittle, it's hard to know, to count on any one other guy in that offense, even Jimmy G, necessarily doing well.
This is true. This is true. And the thing is about the Saints defense is they have a very good run defense, but they have even better. I think. Well, no, that's not true. But I think when it comes to some of the specifics of their pass defense, I actually think their pass defense is like bottom 10. But they have what's his name out there? That corner stop that Lattimore, yeah.
Yeah.
Who could shut down a whole side of the field when he wants to. Whereas now I don't think. I think that they can just throw at will on Atlanta. I think they lost. Didn't they just lose?
Yeah, they
one
lost
of their main corners.
Yeah, they lost Trufant, their number one cornerback. Yeah, so
I don't think they have anything out there.
They really don't, because their safety, their big time safety, Keanu Neal, he was gone earlier in the season.
Yeah.
Their San Francisco's just going to carve them up. I wasn't going to start Jimmy G in any leagues, but now I might start him in a few because Atlanta just has nothing.
Okay, well, unless you have anything else to say.
Well, I do, but we'll get to it.
No, I should specify.
Nope, that's all from me. I'm done.
You're done.
That was the last thing that I had to say.
Bye-bye. All right, so Breeze, Claudio, thank you for holding on, brother. We got about 5 people out there in the chat. Please give us a like. If you can, subscribe right away. Subscribe while you're watching. It goes a long way. If you're watching on your phone, you can just X out of the little live chat. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. And we will each personally get God tier riches if you do that. So
I'm not sure that's exactly how it works. That would be great. That would be great if it did. And then you should have told me this earlier. But,
you see, somebody hits the subscribe. You just see like gold coin,
literal cash falls from our respective ceilings. That would be the best.
That won't happen, but it will go a long way for us continuing to do this next year and throughout the year.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, we've got, I think, 50 subscribers right now, and you had done this in years past, and then it looked like just maybe not as consistently, and then this year it got consistent, and we've done Tuesdays and Saturdays, and we give good advice, and so we're at 50 subscribers. Right. I think if you get to 100, you can get your custom URL, although like I've been hearing all things about like the YouTube, like some YouTube apocalypse or something that's coming. So I don't know that that'll affect us, but anyway, so if you could like and subscribe and throw us some questions too.
Absolutely.
We'll put your question up on the screen and answer them. We have a lot of, regulars that are really good about it, but we like them, but we like new people too.
Yeah, and one of the guys we like is Claudio Jenkins.
Yep.
Thank you, and also if you're watching this and it's not live, if you're just watching the video, feel free to put in a question. We actually go back and read them. AJ is really good about going back to the videos and looking for questions. So. Breeze, Rogers, or Brady standard? Claudio. So you got Breeze. Okay. I actually did a little research on this because I have Breeze and I was worried about Lamar. I went back and looked. When Breeze has a big game, does he have a fall off the next game? That was my big worry. The answer is no. He does not. He actually usually around this time has about a string of 4 games where he has 40 plus games. So, take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, easily by a mile, Breeze for me. Brady's struggling. Cincinnati has been like surprisingly good against the pass.
Well, particularly in their pass rush, and that is his Achilles heel.
Yeah.
Even though he doesn't get sacked, he gets rid of it, but he gets rid of it into the stands.
Yeah. So I think that New England Cincinnati game. It's in Cincinnati. I think that could be a really low scoring game. And I wouldn't mind if the Patriots defense from earlier in the season would show back up again. I could use that in the fantasy playoffs if they wouldn't
Hey
mind doing
man,
that.
this is the game where
This is-
that will probably happen.
This is the game where I need it to happen. So, so definitely not Brady, and also not Rodgers. I think 4 of the past 5 games, Aaron Rodgers has been under 13 points.
And we are on record on this podcast saying
Yeah,
Rodgers has never really been a good fantasy player. He's like out of this world, god tier all-star, and my favorite player. But for fantasy, he's just too efficient.
yeah, and yeah, he hasn't been for at least a couple, if not a few years now. Not a great fantasy quarterback, but this year he's taken it to another level, and by another level, I mean like the basement level. He's just not been good. Breeze, I don't know what he'll do, but you've got to start him over both those guys. He might outscore both of them combined.
He could easily.
The thing about this is the Colts have been pretty solid against quarterbacks this season, but then you wouldn't really know it from that game in Tampa last week, even though they did force some turnovers. Jameis put up a lot of points. And the thing about this game coming up,
I mean, did they really force those turnovers, or did Jameis just Jameis?
That's true. Jameis just gave, yeah. But the thing about this game coming up Monday night is it's a primetime game, and
at home,
and Breeze is, I think, 2 touchdown passes away from tying. I guess it's I don't even know what record it is, but he's two touchdown passes away from tying some record. So he's going to be going for that record. He's going to be going for that record in a primetime game. So they're going to try to get him at least 3 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
So yeah, give me Breeze. Give me Breeze this week all the way.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's got another 40 burger today.
Yeah.
Okay, man. We got some good news. We got some bad news. Good news is Gordon Hackman, he's only subscribed to 1 podcast on YouTube, and it happens to be to the Roto Hackers. Yours truly.
That's impressive. Do you know Gordon?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that diminishes a little bit, but
it does.
just only a little bit.
I suggest Gordon. I was trying to give some advice to Gordon, but I'm when I have to work it out with other people. That's why I like being on this podcast. When I'm just asked straight up like this or that, you know me, I got some crazy takes. And then the bad news is Claudio lost his main league. Speaking of, all right, sometimes I have good takes. I don't want to. Parker?
No. A concussion does not count for Parker. Look again. The slaughterhouse of receivers: Evans, Chark, Alshon Jeffrey, Ridley, Marvin Jones, Devontae Parker. You can't be like, oh, I called it that this guy. I mean, he got a concussion.
I would never play Parker.
I mean, it's a freak thing, though.
Yeah, it's football. And then let's see. So Gordon's got a few questions. Starts with number 1. Oh, by the way, Claudio, sorry, man. And now Evans probably gave you some good points. I mean, he had a huge touchdown.
He had
maybe
12
points.
He had like 161-yard grab for a touchdown or something like that.
Yeah, he had like 12 points.
So he was solid for you, but
So you probably wouldn't have him next week.
Oh, he's done for the season. I've dropped him. No,
I'm saying like, yeah, you definitely wouldn't have him next week, but he's not going to be in there next week. So
yeah.
Sorry, man.
That's
I
tough.
hope you didn't lose any money, but
don't
play next year.
Don't play. My recommendation is don't play leagues that their playoffs start in week 15. I know Judah's got some.
I mostly only play those kind of leagues.
Not for me. It's heartbreaking enough to have 2 rounds of playoffs, but 3, it's just you work all season, to get your team in and to lose in the quarterfinals. It's just not for me.
I hear you. But if you're good enough, you get a bye. That
If you're good, yeah. And most of my teams, I think like maybe I don't know 9 out of my 13 were either like a 1 or 2 seed. So I would have still done okay in leagues where they take 6 because I would have gotten a bye in most of those.
no, that's what the everybody who was in the playoffs, if they were 1 or 2, they got a bye. So okay, so here's the questions from Gordon.
Mhm.
1, how do you feel about Tannehill this week versus the Texans?
I feel good about. I don't know that I feel as good about him as I felt about Oakland. And he could have a better game. I mean, it's at home, but Oakland's pass defense had been so bad. I started him up in some leagues there. The Texans have been mostly bad, mostly terrible, but they've also had a couple of surprising games too.
Well,
you
they
know?
have, yeah.
So they've got some guys healthier, and but then all of a sudden Drew Lock and the Broncos carved them up. So I was thinking like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't know that Tannehill's going to be that great of a play. The Texans pass defense seems to be getting a little bit better, and then all of a sudden Drew Lock goes in and carves them up. So I think if you've got Tannehill, you start him unless you've got someone like obviously if you have Lamar Jackson or Breeze, although a handful of guys, maybe 5 guys, but
let me run some by you.
yeah,
Would you do Jimmy Polo over Tannehill?
I would start Tannehill because I think the floor is safer. Jimmy, they both have a pretty high ceiling. They've both been racking up some 30-point games. But Jimmy can have some 11-point games if they don't have to throw the ball. So I think Tannehill's floor is safer.
I would play Jimmy. Would you play Phillip Rivers?
Oh, Tannehill over Rivers for sure. It's safer again. Like I may have to start Rivers in a league this week, and the Vikings are a good matchup.
No,
but
they're a good matchup. Yeah, they you can throw them though.
But
Rhodes, not that Rhodes has been any good, but he's banged up too.
Yeah, but I've just been burned. Like I started Rivers during one of his awful weeks, and it just burned me. Like I just have a hard time going back to him after that. So,
well, here's a hard one: the biscuit, Miss Trubisky.
Trubisky or Tannehill? That's not a hard one for me. That's
Tannehill.
Yeah,
I think it depends on which Mitch Trubisky shows up, but I was considering him playing if Lamar sat.
I'll say this about quarterbacks this week. I think there are tons of guys that you could play and they could have a good day. Trubisky being one of them. I think Kyle Allen could maybe have an okay game. Minshew. Again,
that was going to be my next one. Minshew.
He gets the Raiders. But just there's risk factor in there too. We've like Kyle Allen's floor is 3 points. Minshew's floor is maybe getting pulled for Foles.
Yeah.
So again, like for me, it's the floor. It's the floor that like Tannehill just has the better floor.
He just seems so much safer. I mean, he's got so many questions. He has so many less question marks. I mean, I think he could have a bad game. Yes. But everybody could have a bad game.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know,
he's not a superstar, but
right. Well, but he's playing like a superstar.
He is.
I mean, it's not been really like fluky. Like they've got a good running game there to open
They're
up.
home.
They're at home. They're playing a bad defense. They've got a good running game to support him. He has established a good connection with AJ Brown. He has a running floor. I mean, you just like when I start making decisions of who to start, like I just start like in my head, like laying it out like that. And so it's like sometimes for guys, it's 3 strikes and you're out. And sometimes for guys, it's like 3 green check marks and you're in. And I think Tannehill this week is one of those guys who, you know, like I was saying, if you have a Lamar, or you have a Breeze, then you play him over him. But like, there's maybe 4 or 5 guys that you play over him, and then and then otherwise you stick him in there. And if he has a letdown game, you just live with it. You just you give yourself the best, odds.
One last one. If Jones plays, would you play him over Tannehill?
Daniel Jones?
Mm-hmm.
No, he's not playing, and no, I wouldn't.
Okay. Mm-mm. All right, next. Neither would I. Should I play? This is hard. Should I play OBJ this week or look for someone to swap him out with?
It depends. It depends what your other options are. If you can give us some of your other options. If it's a guy off the waiver wire, I would probably still stick with OBJ. And I mean, if you've ridden him this long, it's such a good matchup with Arizona. I would be afraid of benching him and then getting a blow up game from him. And I've been a guy who, Judah can attest to this, I've been like not a believer in OBJ. And at this point, he's giving you more reasons than ever not to believe in him. He's hurt. He's talking to other teams. Like, did you see the clip of him like asking Jimmy G?
Come get me.
He looked like a rec ball kid that's going up to another player and like Grayson, man, get your dad to draft, get your dad to pick me next year for our 12U team. It's just like, it was the most. I'm not even exaggerating when I say he looked like a child going up to another child to ask them to get their dad to draft him. It's just, it's so sad. So it depends on what your options are. Like I said, I got rid of him because I didn't want to have to deal with this. And I'm glad that I don't have to deal with this decision this week. But it's Arizona and they're terrible against the pass. He could have a good game, but they're the worst against slot receivers. And so I think Jarvis is going to destroy people next week. So
Jarvis,
I hope you're not playing Jarvis. And I think I'm only playing him
against him.
Yeah.
Well, let me give you some players here. Let me get to the players here. Would you play? Let me get to the wide receivers here. Would you play Slayton over him?
Probably not, unless. What is the deal with Odell's health? Did they say like what?
I mean, he's had a hernia, a sports hernia since day one.
Yeah, but has it worsened lately? I'm just like going to the page.
No.
Okay,
I think most of that's just been it. I mean, obviously, I don't think it gets better the more you play on it, but
no, right. No, I'm sure it's probably gotten at least.
He's going to have surgery as soon as the season's over. He said there was that whole thing where Mayfield was like, they made a big mistake. They should have, he was referring to, they should have done surgery at the beginning of the year, and then he had to walk it back.
Baker.
And that dude. I had a friend who lives in Cleveland, and he lamented the fact that they got Baker. I was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "He's gonna be awesome."
Yeah,
he was right. All right, would you play what?
So,
Slayton?
I would not play Slayton over him. I mean, OBJ's targets haven't been great the last couple of games, but he's played 2 good pass defenses, Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. Prior to that, well, he was still playing those teams prior to that, and
he's had a terrible matchup season.
Yeah. I would play him over Slayton because look, it's Eli, and I know Eli had a good second quarter of just chucking the ball up.
You mean a good first quarter? Oh, second quarter.
Second quarter, yeah.
First half,
yeah. He was just chucking the ball up, and Philadelphia's a bad pass defense, and Darius Slayton got open a couple of times, but we saw after that he's still Eli Manning. He's going to have trouble probably moving the ball even against Miami. They're probably going to rely on Saquon as much as they can, and the Giants have three good receivers in Shepard, Slayton, and Tate. I know Tate's the biggest guy, and he seemed like he had a connection with him, but I don't trust that that's gonna, hold up
You
game
mean
to game.
Slayton?
Yeah, I don't know what I said, but yeah,
Tate.
with Slayton, Tate, and Shepard, all three,
Yeah.
they're all three kind of in the mix. They're all three, they all have their sort of pros and cons. Slayton's the big guy, and Tate's the little slot guy, and Shepard's kind of in between. So it's tough I think it'd be tough to rely on him.
It could be any of them or none of them.
Any of them or none of them. It could be 150 yards, no touchdown, 1 INT for Eli. And you know what? AJ mentioned that Dolphins kicker. I'm gonna pick him up in some leagues and play him because look, that game is Giants Dolphins. How much is Eli gonna move the ball? I don't know. The Dolphins, they're now missing like Devontae Parker. If he's not back, then they're on like 4th and 5th wide receivers.
Yeah.
I think Ryan Fitzpatrick can move the ball a little bit to get into field goal range, and that kicker again, it might be like a 15-12 game or something.
You're right.
So I'm gonna play that kicker.
That's smart
in some leagues.
What's his name?
Sanders, I think.
Yeah, he mentioned his. Let me read it right here. He said.
The dude had 24.
Jason Sanders. Go pick him up.
He had 24 points. Can you imagine? And he's 1% owned. There are people out there that
won their leagues.
That got people that lost to them though.
Oh, man.
Lost because of the Dolphins kicker having 24 points and knocking them out of the playoffs.
Jeez. Would you play AJ Brown over what's his name?
OBJ. No, I still wouldn't. I mean, he and Tannehill have had a good connection, but it's not like it's still not that reliable, and he's not getting a ton of targets. Like he's doing his damage on big plays. So he had 7 targets in that game at Oakland. But prior to that, it was week 9 before he had 7 targets. Like in between these like 7 or 8 target games, he's having some 4 target games. So, I'm picking up AJ Brown in some leagues. I may play him in a couple.
I don't even know if I want to pick him up.
I'm going to pick him up because I might have to play him in a couple.
That's true. I mean, some places people gotta.
Yeah. Well, so like in one of my leagues, so you got to think about like, just injuries, like the guys that we talked about, like in some of my leagues, you may have lost like your 2nd, 3rd, and 4th options. If you you can find guys.
Yeah. I was texting you. I was like, I feel good about putting putting Chark in there.
Chark over Evans. Yeah. Right.
and then Chark goes down.
I had a league where it was like, Evans, and then Chark, and then Alshon, and then just gone. And so like you start getting down and to where you're like, all right, I guess it is going to be like Slayton or AJ Brown or something, I mean, what other choice do I have? I mean, even if you have 4 receivers on your team or something like that, I mean, you might have just lost 3 out of 4.
Well, let me ask you a question. Speaking of all these people going down, we saw Chark go down. Would you play Chris Conley over OBJ? Or, side note, would you pick up Chris Conley this week as a waiver wire pickup?
Yeah, in certain situations I would. Again, Oakland's terrible against the pass. And I think it'll be a lot of him and Dede, but at the same time, that offense is still going to go through Leonard Fournette. And, it's not like I don't think Conley's just going to absorb Chark's target share. You've got other guys in there like Keelan Cole that flare up and get 6 targets once in a while. So I think it's hard to trust him.
I do think he'll get more targets though. I mean, there was a time he was getting regularly like 7 to 9 targets.
Yeah.
And then he just dropped off.
Right. I think he could be. There's a lot of guys out there that, I think in some ways the fantasy playoffs are set up for guys who have to turn to some of these guys because they just don't have any choice, because they're actually like kind of sneaky good plays. But if you've got more reliable guys, it's hard to go to them if you do. So I think the desperate players might really come out ahead this week, because there's some guys out there that could, really have some surprising games.
Okay, enough on that. We got 2 more questions from Gordon. He says, who do you recommend as a replacement for Crowder as a flex? Now, why are you replacing Crowder?
You may just not want to play him against the Ravens.
Oh, I would think though that against the Ravens, that would be the way to attack them, right?
I mean, as opposed to the other options, probably, because I mean, like Cole Beasley, I think he had a pretty solid game. Let's see, he had actually he didn't. He had 12.9 points, but only 29 yards. He caught a touchdown and had a 2-point conversion. So yeah, I don't want to play any Jets against the Ravens.
So would you pick up Chris Connolly or Slayton?
All those guys we just talked about. Slayton, AJ, Westbrook, Brown, Conley, any of those guys, I would play him over Crowder. I don't want any part of the Jets offense this week.
Okay. And there's another guy I want to talk about waiver wires, but I have to get ready. I might throw up a little bit in my mouth. So. And then final question. Last question. How do you feel about James White this week?
You want to go first on that one? Or?
I actually don't feel very good about him, because I like James White. He just seems to be, when it comes to assumption of rational coaching, there's nobody more rational than, people decry his use of running backs and stuff like that. But if you look at the game stats, when it looks like they're going to lose, or when it looks like they're playing a tough run defense or a tough line, well, that might work in this case. But
Cincinnati's not been that tough of a run defense.
They haven't been a tough run defense. So I wouldn't play James White. It's probably going to be a smattering of these other guys. He tends to save James White. It's like his secret weapon against defenses that have tough run defenses.
Yeah. I mean, with the Patriots, you never know. Like,
that's true.
They have games where they just decide that they're going to feature one guy and they're going to just shove him down the other team's throat. Last year in the playoffs, they just ran Sony Michel down the middle over and over and ran over teams. They've done that with James White in the past, where they've just decided they were going to do a ton of little dump offs
last week.
Yeah. Against Houston. And then they have games where it's just like, the Super Bowl. It's just Julian Edelman. We're going to just throw the ball literally to Julian Edelman on every play. And so you run the risk of that being the week that the Patriots have decided they're just going to, go to that one guy and he's going to score 30 points. But just the odds are against it. And the matchup is really kind of against it too. There's no particular reason why. If the Patriots were playing the Eagles or someone like that have a tough run defense, you would have a better odds of it then. But really, there's no reason to think that this is going to be a blow up game for James White. And every other week he's been like 9 points or less. So,
which actually, wasn't it just like right at like 8 points or something like that? He got like 3 weeks in a row.
Oh yeah, constantly like 8 or 9 points. So I mean, there's just too many other guys out there that can give you better than that.
Okay, well, let's talk about those other guys. I feel like if you went out and picked up, I think Mostert could at least get you 8 points and probably more.
Yeah, I'm going with him in some leagues.
Ronald Jones.
Here's the thing with Ronald Jones this week. Like, I feel like we're so down on him, and you can't really trust him because of the way that they're using him and Peyton Barber. and I can't pronounce the other guy's name. I feel like I feel like Ronald Jones is going to have 18 points this week. That's just what I imagine in my head.
Yeah.
He's gonna have like 70 yards, 60 or 70 yards, and he's gonna have 2 touchdowns because it's the Lions. And he's gonna have 18, 19 points. But he's so hard to gamble on because they're splitting up those touches. So I feel like a lot of people are gonna, me included, like have to leave Ronald Jones on your bench, and then you're just gonna mourn it later.
So you'd roll the dice on him if you were like
over James White for sure, absolutely. And there may be even some other guys, like if I feel like I need to chase points, that I might stick Ronald Jones in there and just take a swing for the fences there.
Somebody who's on the waiver wire. Would you do Boston Scott?
That's a messier situation because we don't know if Jordan Howard's going to play or not. Obviously,
that's a nice run defense, though.
That's a great matchup for him.
Yeah, I mean, a bad run defense, a good one to run against. Yeah.
I feel like Philadelphia likes to use committees. So Doug Peterson likes to use committees. So I feel like if Howard is still out, that Peterson will, maybe make it more of a split between Sanders and Scott. And they don't seem to want to use Miles Sanders at the goal line that much. Yeah. So Scott he's got some appeal there.
Well, here's somebody who may have a little bit more. You just said that you would run a pass catching running back against Philadelphia. What about Chris Thompson?
Washington's
on
offense,
the other side of the field there. Huh?
Yeah. I gotta look back real quick to see what he did this past week. I mean, Geis is out, so it's going to be him and Adrian Peterson. And man, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of just along the same lines as James White.
I trust Chris Thompson more than James White. Just in the sense of like, maybe Haskins can't throw it more than 8 feet down the field. He
can, but just not accurately.
Right. Yeah. And they can hand it off to Peterson, but
he's going to run into a brick wall.
Yeah. So I think the logical option would be to go with Chris Thompson, but I don't know. I mean, that's just imagination.
I think the only I would play AP if you're really desperate, and or maybe McLaurin. The Eagles defense is bad, and maybe if Haskins just gets the ball in the general area, he can catch it and run for a touchdown.
Did you see that catch by McLaurin?
No, I saw he had a 60 and a touchdown or something, but I didn't see it.
He it was OBJ-esque. He just he was like turned around, if you can see me, around and just snatched it like behind. I don't even think he was looking. It was like a no-look catch with one hand.
Nice.
It was pretty nice. I'm a big fan of scoring McLaurin. All right. Well, we'll just hope that he gets a better pass catcher, or
if he'd had Keenum, had Keenum this week, I would be firing him.
Is Keenum is he hurt, or they're just saying no?
They're just saying no. As far as I remember, they used I think it was the 15th pick of the first round. It was a mid first round pick on Dwayne Haskins, and so they've got to see what they've got. It's hard for anybody behind that offensive line. It's a tough situation for him, but I think they'd be, at least for like Terry McLaurin's fantasy value, would be better with Keenum, but they got to see what they've got in their first round pick. So
yeah. Okay, let's recap real quick. Yes to Tannehill. OBJ, yes to OBJ. Put him in. I don't think you have, unless you can find better.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what you've got. Yeah.
Who would you say you would play above him? Nobody, right?
I mean, you would have to have, I think, some like other, legitimate starters, like two other legitimate wide receivers.
Yeah, I can't think of any. And then over Crowder, we gave you a couple. I think we gave you a couple. Oh, we talked about all those other guys like Connolly and let me look at
AJ Brown.
Brown.
Slayton.
Yeah, there we go. And then I'm going to mention one more in a minute. But and then the last one was
James White.
Might want to bench James White, but with the caveat, if you don't like all those ones we talked about, if you don't have them available on your waiver wire or on your bench, just put them in your flex and say a prayer. Okay, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna check and see. Like, I'm curious to see if Sony Michel is available in any of my leagues.
Sony over.
I'm just curious. I don't know that I want to do this, but I'm just curious to see. Like, he's only available in one of my leagues.
What's his availability? Why?
He's 91% owned still. That's crazy. I'm surprised that it's that high. Maybe people have been saving him for this game. Oh, you know what? This is this is my league where I scraped in at 7-7, where I beat the first place team who I had to beat the first place team to get in this past week.
You got him with 7-7.
I got in with 7-7, and I had to beat the first place team. He was projected to beat me by like 30 points. But I beat him. He had a terrible game and had a pretty good week. But now I'm thinking like maybe I'll pick up Sony and hope he just runs wild because this guy has a legit team. It was going to be nearly impossible for me to beat him the first time around. Now to beat him again, like I'm going to take probably a shot, and I'm going to pick up that Dolphins kicker for this league too, because I'm just going to try to, I'm swinging for the fences on this.
Do it, man. Be courageous. Okay. So he says, thanks guys. Helpful input. You're welcome, man. Any other questions? Let us know. All right. I'm sorry. Math Quest. We finally get to you. Would you guys go with Jameis or Ryan Tannehill this upcoming week? That's a tough one.
This is a tough one. Yeah, this is a tough one.
I'm a little worried about Jameis. He showed up to an event a couple days or yesterday. Evans had an event, some kind of birthday party or something. He showed up with his hand totally wrapped, which, I mean, it probably should be, but it's not like, it is a fracture. And Jared pointed out that, if you compare Jameis to Mahomes, they said was a little bruised. Jameis was actually a fracture.
Yep.
So I don't know what the difference in pain is there, but I'm assuming it's a little bit more. I would bet it's a little more psychologically, a little bit more scary.
Yeah. I would want to play Winston for the upside against that Lions pass defense, but man, I don't know. I don't know that I could do that. I think I would probably still have to go the safe route and play Tannehill in your playoffs, because you're taking the risk. Number one, anytime you start Jameis Winston, you're taking the risk of getting bad Jameis. Bad to the point of, getting you 10 or 11 points, Jameis. Now you've also got the fracture. So now you have the added risk of, is it going to affect his throwing? Mike Evans is out. So now he's lost one of his big weapons.
That's big thing.
And then the biggest thing for me is, what if he lands on it wrong? What if he hits it on somebody's helmet on a follow through? That might be the end of his day. So,
well, and on top of that, he might favor it a little bit, worrying about that. He might be picturing exactly what you just said and favor, and not go full on. Mm-hmm. But I would still go with Jameis.
Would you? I want to, and I am going to use him in one league, but I've got 7. Well, I've only got 13 in the playoffs, but I've got 13 teams. So if he kills me in one, I can afford it, but I'm going to go with him in one. It's the only one I have him in. But Tannehill is definitely the safer play, but it depends on what your risk risk tolerance is there, because the Lions are a bad pass defense, but I mean the Texans are too, So
Yeah.
I think there's a little more upside with Jameis, but the floor is safer with Tannehill.
Yeah, and the thing is with Tannehill is that game means more. They're gonna, that's a battle. I don't know. What do you think in your experience in the NFL when it's that kind of struggle, when there's more stakes on the line? Actually, it could be more of a defensive game, right? Like sometimes these like purposeless games tend to be shootouts because defense doesn't play as hard, but the offense still wants to get their scores.
Yeah, I don't know that that'll really affect. I mean, I think you just got to go with like what's the makeup of the team. So like if you were going to have like a Ravens Steelers game, that would probably be, with something on the line, that's probably going to be a defensive matchup. But like, look at that San Francisco New Orleans game, So and both of those teams have good defenses.
Real good
so
defenses.
it
Top
ended up
five.
being, one of the biggest shootouts we'd had this year, maybe the biggest shootout. So I don't think you can really predict, like the level of offensive or defensive script in terms of the importance of the game.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to predict anything in the NFL, ladies.
It's hard to predict. What was it that I was looking at the other day? And I was just laughing. It's blank. My mind's blanking, but I was just laughing at like, man, the NFL is so ridiculously unpredictable. I think maybe it was a game result or something. I'll have to go back while we're talking and look and see.
Well, while you're looking at that, I'm going to take this moment to
plug merch.
Plug some merch.
I could feel that coming just by your pause there.
Guys, if you want to support the Roto Hackers, go down and hit subscribe, give us a like, put a comment after this is done. Comment. Plenty of you guys have been commenting and we appreciate it. Actually, more comments would be helpful, but also comment later on. If you come back to this video after we've streamed live, you wait a little bit, you come back and you put a nice little comment in there. That would go even further. But you want to go even further? You want to help us get super sexier in our presentations, put some actual Dolly Otters into our I don't know, infrastructure here. Get rid of the little ducky. I love you, powered by Stream Duck, but StreamYard Duck, but with a little bit of jingle in our pockets, and that would be brought about by you going out and buying. And I price these just about as low as I can, so we're barely making anything on these. I mean, $25 for a hoodie, come on. And you have to pay a little bit for shipping, but that's pretty good.
Right. And like I said in another broadcast, like it will be worth it. Like the best thing would be to give it as a Christmas gift, because it'll be worth it to see the look on that person's face when they open up that box on Christmas morning and they're like, what the hell is this? Who are these people?
I'm telling you, Claudio, MathQuest, listen, this would make, if you have like a white elephant, or like if you have a job where you guys are doing the Secret Santa thing and you got that lady who's always like yelling at you in the office, get her a Roto Hackers t-shirt. The t-shirt is only like, I think it's only like $18 plus shipping. And I swear the look on her face when she gets that gift and you know, unwrapping it, and look, you got to do it. You got to do it.
It's sad that that's like the best, like our best argument for you.
Okay, well, that's enough pluggery.
But they are very, yeah. Go back to that other camera. I like that better.
Oh, you like the big one?
Yeah, it feels weird. It feels like we're, I don't know. Have you watched? Well, never mind. I'm not even gonna make that reference. It doesn't matter.
What?
I just changed my mind because I just felt like it's a stupid reference. But have you seen Get Out? You remember Get Out, the movie?
No, I never saw that.
Okay, well, never mind. Okay, see, you should have just let me backtrack out of that.
Okay. before we go, and we do need to go, we're running. We need to keep it short as less people are going to be having questions. Pretty much at this point, I'm much more. I know you're less, but I'm much more. Just play the dance with those who got you there. Dance with the girl who brought you. But you like to do a little tinker stinker.
Yeah, and that is what I call it.
All right, so what?
That is not yeah, I am. I'm definitely not inclined to use guys if I think they have a bad matchup. But I don't know. I don't want to, overdo it either. So it really just kind of like so I guess for me, yeah, like there's some guys. I'll give you some early, well, because we got a Thursday game.
Yeah.
We got a Thursday game. So I mean, for me, yeah, I'm probably, well, I'm almost definitely going to sit Le'Veon Bell.
Wow. Say that again. You're going to sit Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah. I'm going to sit Le'Veon Bell. Look, he has not been great this season. The Jets' offensive line is not great, and they're going up against a run defense that is eighth best in terms of what they've given up to running backs. It's been so Le'Veon's best rushing total was 70 this season. He's been anywhere from 23 to 70, lots of 40s and 50s mixed in there. He's got 3 rushing touchdowns. I traded for him in several leagues to help me get to the playoffs because he had a great stretch of games to end the season. Miami, the Giants, the Redskins, the Raiders, the Bengals, and then he missed that game last week against Miami. But man, I just don't like him against on the road against the Ravens in a game where they're probably going to get blown out. I mean, maybe he gets, enough garbage dump off passes to, give you 8 or 9 points.
Well, I think that's the key. Are you in a PPR, like full PPR, or what do you?
Half.
Okay.
So, against the better teams that he's faced, I mean, against some of the bad teams, he's been able to give you, 14, 15 points. But against some of the better teams, I mean, he's giving you 8. So, I feel like if you've got a better option, Le'Veon's not the guy. I don't like any Jets this week.
Wow. Well, I would say in a full PPR, I would still use Le'Veon, but absolutely not in a standard. Right. And I would definitely reconsider playing him. I might have to play him in my half point PPR. Yeah. I might have to. Like I think it's like him or sexy Rexy Burkhead.
Then yeah, Le'Veon.
Yeah. Okay. So you're saying sit.
Yeah, there's so I'll just name off. I'll just go ahead and name off because since we are pretty early tonight. So quarterbacks, I would not touch. I wouldn't play. We already talked about Rodgers. Carson Wentz. I know it's not an intimidating matchup against the Redskins, but I mean he has no receivers left. Alshon Jeffrey's gone. Deshaun Jackson has been gone. Nelson Aguilar's hurt. They were down to one receiver in that game, and he had done nothing most of that game, and he just finally got some garbage points. Wouldn't play him. Your boy Josh Allen gave us a new floor last week, and he only had 10 or so against the.
Really, that's his first floor.
Well, I'm saying it like that's his. He had a new floor because before it was like 12 or something like that.
Yeah, but he left with a concussion that week. That was against the Patriots. He left. He was left with a concussion at halftime.
Yeah, but I mean, regardless, like this is his
Oh
new,
yeah.
his new floor. So in Pittsburgh, um, I think there's too many other good options out there. I would be even hesitant to start Russell Wilson.
Really? No. You got to tell me why. Give me your explanation here.
Okay.
You're making me happy with all these sits. These are the guys that are going against me this week.
2 of the last 3 weeks, Russell Wilson 10.5 at Philly, and then he had 17.9 at home against Minnesota, and he had 11.6 against the Rams. He's typically not great. Well, he's typically inconsistent, period, but he's typically not great on the road. So at Atlanta, he only had 15.68. At San Francisco, granted, that's a good pass defense, but he had 17.58. Now, I think the Panthers' defense is worse than, most of those teams. But, I mean, in Philly, he only had 10.5. Carolina's
I know exactly what you're saying.
Carolina's run defense is horrible, and we saw the last couple of weeks like how committed the Seahawks are to just running the ball. So if I think there's just too many other good options out there to play Russell Wilson.
I think maybe what you might be picking up here, and I don't know if you're saying this or not, but Russell Wilson plays better against harder teams.
He really does, kind of.
And not necessarily harder defenses, but like he plays better against better offenses. So he throws more when he has to throw more, but if he doesn't have to throw more, they're happy to just sit on a 10-3 lead,
They are. Yeah. And I mean, Chris Carson, it's interesting. Chris Carson is actually in Yahoo's composite rankings. Carson is actually the number 1 ranked running back this week.
Get out of here. Really?
He's ranked above the guy he's playing against, CMC.
Get out.
Yeah. So,
I feel like that the Panthers are going to have to throw, and they're going to have to throw a lot to CMC.
Yeah. I think they'll have to mix it up for sure. I don't think like he can't just, run straight like that.
Oh no, they're not going to be able to just run down the gullet. But I think they could. I think he could see in a PPR. I think he's going to have a monster game again.
Yeah, CMC. I have him in 3 leagues, but I'm playing against him in like 4. So
you just want him to do like 12 points, just 12 points.
Well, no, I want like. I don't know what I want out of him. I think maybe like 20, like maybe 20, because that gives me a boost, but then it doesn't kill me.
It doesn't kill you. Ways. 20 would be right. What about like 18? Probably 18 would be just perfect.
Yeah, maybe so. I don't know. I think I could even stomach like low 20s, but if he starts getting like, 25 plus, that's going to be hard to bounce back from. But
and you're only half point PPR, so it shouldn't hurt you so bad. Too bad.
But he's had some down weeks.
These last 3.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if he bounces back from that.
Couple more pickups or sits.
Yeah. So I don't know. There are some guys that I'm debating. Okay. So another one that I'm going to sit for sure is Devonta Freeman against the 49ers. The 49ers had a little streak where their run defense wasn't that great. They seem to have kind of gotten that a little bit more back under control. I just don't feel great. I mean, Freeman just hasn't been great this year behind that Falcons offensive line. I don't feel great about that. The 2 that I'm debating though in a couple of leagues, these are guys that would be a little bit harder to sit, but man, they've got rough matchups. Melvin Gordon and Mark Ingram.
Wait, what? You would sit them?
I'm considering it.
Okay, talk to me about why.
So Melvin Gordon's got the Vikings this week. And so the Vikings have, let's see if I can find this stat of like how many rushing touchdowns the Vikings have allowed. But I mean, Melvin Gordon is somewhat touchdown dependent because, I mean, Austin Eckler is getting a lot of the passing down work.
I think they're about equal, though.
Well, Melvin doesn't seem to be turning his into a lot, though.
That is true.
Eckler's just such a shiftier little guy.
He's the reincarnation of what's his name?
Woodhead.
Woodhead, my little woodchuck.
Yeah.
He's just Woodhead reincarnated in the same jersey.
Right. So Minnesota, yardage wise, they're kind of in a clump of teams, sort of in that bottom 10 or so that Minnesota's allowed 1324 or 1,324 rushing yards for the season. So that's not even like bottom 5 or so. They're kind of right outside that. But where they're really killing teams is they've only allowed 5 rushing touchdowns this season, and I think 2 of those came to Seattle. So 5 rushing touchdowns. If he's not doing a ton through the air, if he's just basically running the ball, man, that's tough for me to go with him there.
Okay.
And I've got him in a couple of leagues, so it's painful because I could definitely use him this week, but I feel like I may have to sit him down and maybe go back to him. Of course, now next week he's got a much better matchup with Oakland, but it's hard for me to trust him this week. And so Mark Ingram. The Jets have allowed, I think, the second fewest rushing yards. Now, they have allowed 11 touchdowns. So there's one league where I only have Ingram in 2 leagues. I'm going to have to play him in 1. And the other one, I'm going to wait and see. It sucks because he's got a Thursday game. But depending on how things look with Jacobs, I'm probably going to roll with DeAndre Washington, actually, over Ingram in that league.
Well, I think that Ingram could have. I would trust him more than maybe not than DeAndre, but any of those guys we talked about picking up over the waiver wire and I think I trust him more in this matchup because just because I feel like Lamar will be open up more lanes for him. I think this week. They're just going to shift everything towards Lamar. Every little play action, they're just going to follow Lamar,
Yeah.
And I think he could really roll this week. But little piece of advice to those you probably know this, Jared, but if you have somebody in a Thursday game, and you're not sure about the matchups or whatever, you're not sure about who else you're going to put in. If you're going to play him in the Thursday game, play him in your RB spot, not your flex, which is kind of counterintuitive. But that way, if you have to pivot to a wide receiver or a tight end, if you've got that kind of flex, then you're not stuck with just that running back in your flex.
I learned that the hard way years ago, where I just wasn't really thinking about it, and then
it's counterintuitive.
Yeah, but I think and then a guy ended up getting ruled out Sunday, and I'm like, I can't play my wide receiver in that spot. But yeah, so I learned that you order it, based on kind of the date, that they're playing. So and that's important to know, because you'll have I think not this week, but when we get into week 16, I think we may have some Saturday games again.
Yeah, there's been a couple flex to Saturday.
Yeah, so that starts making things trickier.
Absolutely. Yeah. Did you have any more?
Um,
Do you have any? Oh, if you don't, I'm going to read some of AJ's. Do you want me? How about? Do you want a little time to kind of peruse some
yeah,
names? Okay.
people are probably tired of hearing me talk for a while, so
Okay.
yeah.
Well, we'll just switch things up a little bit, and this is what AJ says: pickups. Raheem Mostert and Ryan Tannehill deserve to be picked up everywhere. They should be more than 50%. In more than 50% of leagues. Tyler Higbee is the number one streaming tight end in the NFL right now. Pick him up. Patrick Laird is good? Question mark.
Well, look, I don't know if I think you can use him this week if you need to, but next week he has the Bengals at home. So I think if you want to, okay. And so that is the other thing that I would say for this week is, I tend to concentrate on week 15, but, where you can, if you have an opportunity and you see guys that, maybe maybe one of your guys, doesn't have a good matchup next week and there's someone out there that's available, you could grab somebody for that. I think Laird is a running back option for, again, I don't love him this week as much. The Giants are typically not terrible against the run. Like I remember Chase Edmonds with the Cardinals, like tore them up 1 week, but for the most part, it seems like they haven't really been, they get gashed more through the air.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. The Giants, are you talking about the Giants?
Yeah.
Oh, they got a terrible run defense.
It's not, I know it's not great, but
and Boston Scott just tore them up like they were nothing.
Well, let's see. I don't remember exactly where they're ranked. So I think they're like, okay, so they've given up the 14th most. So they're almost middle of the pack. Okay. So they're not terrible. I mean, they're not great, but they're not, bottom barrel either. So he's playable this week, but really next week with Cincinnati especially is a nice matchup. Yeah. Is that all of his? Got some others?
No, he had some comments here. He said also, thank you, Derrick Henry. Shout out to Jared here. The absolute stud. And then he said, apparently, going back to thoughts about the last weekend. So apparently, every third string player in the NFL got a touchdown this week. Gotta love that passing diversity. Also, Boston Scott came out of nowhere. Good for him. That does it for AJ's comments.
I appreciate your reading with the same inflection that he does. At least you deserve some props for that. You didn't just phone it in and you tried to give your best AJ impression there.
So you're saying it was a bad impression?
No, I think it's solid. I think it's really solid.
All right.
Well,
yeah, Boston Scott. So we talked a little bit about him. Would you pick him? Who would you pick up more? Who are you more happy to pick up, Laird or Boston Scott?
Laird, because
our Laird and savior.
Laird, I know the volume, unless they change it all of a sudden, the volume is going to be there. And Boston Scott, I don't know. I mean,
you have no idea. Yeah.
No, we don't know if Howard's going to be back. We don't know if he's going to, earn more of a split with Sanders.
Now Sanders didn't do diddly squat, and he may be a little banged up.
Yeah, he didn't do a whole lot. Yeah, it's something to watch.
So if Jordan Howard doesn't come back, would you be happy about Boston Scott?
I don't know if I'd be happy about him. I think it's something like, I don't think a ton of people are going to pick up him on waivers.
So you don't have to grab him today.
I don't think you have to grab him. I think it's something like, if you've got a spot, you could even probably pick him up as a free agent tomorrow. Or if you don't, you might could like wait and just kind of monitor the situation and see what they're saying about Howard, what they're saying about Sanders. If they're saying they may, give him some more carries. If they do, then that Washington's a great matchup. So that's potentially a good spot. But I would, unless you've just got a spot on your bench to burn, there's no one else. There's not an AJ Brown that you can get, or a Washington or a Mostert or something. Then, if you just got a free spot, sure, take him. But otherwise, the other thing I was going to say was, I think there are, I'm trying to go more lately for some of the like deeper league or more desperation plays, because a lot of the guys, I feel like, are just going to be like,
you already have them. Everybody already has them.
Everybody already has them, or everybody's telling you to pick them up, or they're not really, there's somebody who's kind of faded for some reason. And, maybe you've had them, but you haven't really considered using them a while. So yeah, a couple of those guys, and I'll do receivers here. Is you're taking risks here because they're not going to get a ton of targets, but the matchups are very friendly. Hollywood Brown and Mike Williams.
Yeah.
So the Jets are terrible against the pass. Just like we said, they're, I think, second best or so against the run, but they can't defend anything pass wise. Lamar likes to throw to his tight ends, so they're going to tend to get most of the work. But when Hollywood Brown has a game, he has a game, So I think he's a guy that if you don't have a safer option, this is definitely the week to use him. He's had, here's how his games have alternated over the last 5 weeks: 16, 3.3, 18.7, 0.6, and 1.3. So
some splits there, you could say.
He's got some splits there. Like he makes Robbie Anderson look like Mr. Consistency, But so if you've got a safer option, I'm not saying play him over him, but again, going back to my league where I just got in on a prayer beating that number one team, and now I've got to play him again, and he's projected to beat me a lot. I may, besides throwing the Dolphins kicker out there, I may throw Hollywood Brown in there and say, hey, let's see what happens here. And again, to Mike Williams, we talked about it, I think, a couple of weeks ago, how he hadn't had a touchdown all season after getting 10, I think, last season. Well, he finally has a touchdown. He only had he only had 3 targets against Jacksonville. He caught 2 of them for 63 yards and a touchdown.
Are you saying he broke the seal?
Broke the seal.
Broke the touchdown seal. So like now they're just gonna flow.
Oh yeah, the touchdown glass ceiling or something. I don't know. I don't think they're gonna flow necessarily, but the downfield throws they're gonna be there. They're gonna have to throw the ball. And Phillip Rivers prefers to just chunk it downfield as opposed to, safe targets. So I think Williams is an option for you in deeper leagues too.
Okay, well, you think those are deeper leagues? I'm gonna give you a couple.
Those are like 12 or 14 team leagues, not like whatever probably you're about to give me. But
I don't know. These might not be totally bad, but we'll start with one of the less gaggable ones, and that is Danny Amendola. I think now with Jones out, Marvin Jones will not be playing next week or this week, whatever this week
or this season.
Danny Amendola, you might know him from episodes such as the Patriots win the Super Bowl. This is a guy who has been on great teams and played huge roles at the end of seasons. He's a veteran. He knows how to pick up where Martin Jones, that's his name, Martin Jones.
Marvin.
There we go. Marv, if you will. Marv, where Marv has left off. I'm not expecting him to fill the same role because he's much more of a slot player.
Right.
But there's going to be more targets distributed now with Marvin Jones out there. They're not going to be able to just only funnel it to Galladay. So I just believe I'm not saying he's all of a sudden wide receiver 1 or even 2, maybe not even a 3, but he's definitely, I would throw him into a flex for sure. And if you have to, I think he might work out as a wide receiver 3.
I was just curious to see how far you were going to go with that. Like he's not a 4, probably not a 5, solid wide receiver 6 here.
This guy would look great on your bench. No. And one thing I'd like to say is that if you don't think your opponent's going to pick him up and you don't think you're going to play him, don't bother picking him up. Pick up people you're going to play or keep your opponent from playing.
Well, yeah, and that's something else we should point out here is you have to block your opponent. You have to look and see what holes your opponent has in their lineup. If they need maybe a tight end or a kicker, not necessarily a kicker, unless there is a great kicker on the wire and you don't want to let
maybe pick up Jason Sanders, man.
Maybe I honestly don't think that many people are going to be on him.
Hey, if they listen, if there any of the 5 people listening to our show,
that's true. But especially I think like tight ends, defenses, sometimes running backs, like you have to look and see, like you may not. Okay, so say like DeAndre Washington's out there. Maybe your opponent has Josh Jacobs, and maybe you have a higher waiver priority. You need to put in a claim for DeAndre Washington to make sure he doesn't get him, or maybe he doesn't have Josh Jacobs, but maybe he's still running back needy.
Yeah.
Then you still put in a claim to keep him from getting it, because if he's got a position where he's got to start, either a scrub or somebody he's just got to take a Hail Mary on, then that's a huge advantage for you. So it's kind of the same way with defenses. Like I kept the New England and Pittsburgh defenses on a lot of my teams all season because I didn't want somebody playing one of them against me, So most of those are pretty much all gone. I don't think you're going to find New England or Pittsburgh out there in many leagues. But if your opponent needs a defense, Kansas City is a team that's on a lot of waiver wires that people are expecting to have a pretty good week. Although the Broncos tore up Houston last week. So you never know for sure. But again, look and see like what your opponent has, not just in their starting lineup, but on their bench, and see if they may be going after a certain guy on the waiver wire that you can prevent them from getting.
That's good. Okay, here's a couple real quick, and then we got to go.
Yeah.
All right, this one I think could win you leagues. Nelson Aguilar, if he's healthy, I think he's going to get a ton of targets, and I think he's going to have at least a touchdown if he's healthy, because he's the only wide receiver on the team.
Yeah, it's like him and Greg Ward, I think.
Greg Ward, yeah. And Ward is a decent play, so it's not like all they have to do is stop Aguilar. There's other options. They might even be passing to Sanders. I think Sanders will probably play a lot out of the slot. But I expect that Aguilar will probably, I think they said he was he was almost ready to go last week.
Well, here's the thing though. So just today from Yahoo's notes, Eagles coach Doug Peterson says Nelson Aguilar's week 15 status is, quote, up in the air. So that
one you have to watch.
Yeah.
And then Anthony Miller, if he is still out on your waiver wire, I think it's somebody who I just believe that the Chicago Bears have to get him more involved. I think he's a tremendously skilled player. Now, who there's another wide receiver that may be coming back this
Taylor
week.
Gabriel.
Taylor Gabriel that may be coming back this week, but I don't think that will affect him that much because I was just like, he still got 9 targets last time. Taylor Gabriel and him were, I think they were only in one game together. But I think either way, they're going to have to sling it quite a bit. And, well, is that true? Yeah.
Well, here's my take on that game.
Okay.
Was the last thing I was going to bring up.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a good segue.
This segued well into that. I think you can start David Montgomery this week. I started him 2 weeks ago against the Lions, and he had 15 points. Now he did do that with the help of a late receiving touchdown. But the Packers are a bad run defense. People are just tearing the Packers up. And so the Bears, they struggle to run it consistently, but Montgomery is getting the touches lately. And I think you have to pick your matchups with him for sure. Yeah. But I think the Packers is one of the more appealing ones there. So I don't know how Chicago's passing game is going to do. I mean, Mitch Trubisky, now that he's running again, it's opening up throwing lanes. I don't know if they're going to still be there against the Packers or not. The Packers defended him really well the first time, in that week 1. And the quote from the Packers cornerback was, "We wanted to make Mitch play quarterback," which is the most, just about the most damning quote you can have against you if you're a quarterback. But they did, and it didn't go well for him. So I'm a little bit leery of this game because even though he's done well lately, I'm afraid like the Packers just like know the formula to shut him down. I've got Allen Robinson in a couple of leagues that I have no choice but to start now that I've lost Chark and Jeffrey and Ridley. So I'm hoping that Mitch still does well enough to feed him the ball. And like I said, I'm considering starting Montgomery in the only league that I have him, but I feel it's dicey. It's a little bit dicey.
I don't know. Is it? I mean, they're a bad run defense, and he's a pretty good player.
Yeah.
I think it's good. I think it's solid.
Yeah. Well, I guess when I say it's dicey, I mean like Chicago's offense as a whole, don't know. I feel like a guy or two can have a good game, but I don't know if it's going to, I don't know for sure who it's going to be. So
yeah, that's true. All right. Well, I think that's a good note to end on.
Yeah.
We don't have any more questions. It's a slow week. And
yeah,
most people show up for AJ. Once they saw AJ wasn't here, they're like, ah.
Well, or maybe just all the injuries like knocked their teams out.
Yeah, that
this week.
Could be
so
too.
They're just like they're at that stage now where it's like I hate fantasy football. I'm never playing it again. And then they'll sign up for 8 teams in August. So
what I'd like to do next week is What I'd like to do next year is really focus on our website as well. Have a place for chat where we're a lot of that chat we could do on display.
Yeah.
And because I think it might help people just kind of see our thought patterns. A lot of stuff.
Are we going to do? I don't know how deep we'd want to go with this, but I've thought about like, do you want to do rankings next year?
That's what the next thing I was going to say. That's yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say not for like 200 players, but at least the top 20 players.
Yeah, I would say. I'd say top 25 to 30, I think.
Yeah, AJ and I did that last year, but we just didn't keep up with it too much. And I don't know. We were a little bit more about just kind of having fun. And I think this year we really stuck to it. We were consistent, and I think a lot of good content came out. I want to figure out how to have the intro and have some little noises for our various segments, all that, and perhaps say goodbye to our wonderful little friend, the powered by StreamYard
Oh,
Duck.
I like him though. He's just right up here. He's always right above my head. It's like I've got this little flying guardian angel duck head with a money symbol on the side of his head.
That's the StreamYard S.
I don't know. He's the cash grab duck or the something.
And I'd like to have more segments on DFS. I think we should focus a little bit more on DFS.
Yeah.
But I still want to do a little bit more. I'm digging a little bit more into it in the off season, the fantasy off season, and trying to figure out a little bit better. I won $30 last week.
Nice.
I don't know what my lineup was. Let me see.
I really just play like DFS just as like a Hail Mary on getting $50,000 or something, you know.
I did play the Millie Maker and I lost.
I just played the $3 teams so that I can put in several and like take several shots at it. And I'm not going to win $1 million, but if I could win 50,000, that'd be a nice little helpful amount of money.
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you just make it in the top 1,000, right?
I mean, it depends on what it depends on the amount of money, and it depends on, I mean, generally you do have to make like, I think in like the 50,000 leagues, you have to get within like the top 10 or 15 to make even like $1,000 or something. It's tougher than you'd think. Yeah. But at the same time, like I see the winning lineups, I'm like, oh, why didn't I pick that? It seems so obvious in hindsight.
Yeah.
But
this is the lineup I won $30 with. DeAndre. What's his name? Watson. Deshaun. I just have his first name. Deshaun Watson, Nick Chubb, Melvin Gordon, DeAndre Hopkins, Sammy Watkins. Remember we talked about how we thought I thought Sammy Watkins was going to.
I thought he could have a solid day. Yeah.
That's why I played him in this. But I thought, of course, I played Michael Williams, hoping that he was just going to smash all his touchdowns out in one game. But apparently
he got you one. But yeah.
Kittle, and then the two biggest fails were LaShawn McCoy and the Buccaneers. Combined got me like 8 points.
Yeah, you really have to like to make really big money. You just have to hit.
You got to
across the board. Yeah, you do. It's so tough.
I came close, but man, really failed there with Sammy Watkins and LaShawn McCoy and the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
I mean, in hindsight, you know what? I have no idea why I played the Buccaneers. It was probably the bare minimum or something. Like I had to squeeze.
Yeah, I don't think the Bucs were well. The Colts are pretty safe with their offense. The one I wouldn't have done was LaShawn, just because the Patriots just they don't give up. Like people keep saying this year, like, oh, you can run on them. Like I don't know how much you can really. I mean, to a certain extent, but like they're not. You can run on them more this year than in past years, but they're not giving up a ton.
Well, I didn't know, but I figured that the Chiefs were going to win. I thought they're going to win by more, and I just thought the thing I didn't realize or I didn't bank on was that LaShawn McCoy was going to share snaps with so many snaps with whoever that other guy is.
Yeah, I didn't even see who they played because they had.
It was like a 3-way tie for they had each had like 25 snaps.
Darwin Thompson and Spencer Ware.
Spencer Ware had like 20. I think he led them all with like 25 snaps.
Yeah, I don't know that any of the Chiefs running backs. I mean, it's a better matchup with Denver this week, but I don't know if any of them are trustworthy.
Nah. Yeah, I'm not going to put any of them. All right. Well, man, I got to run. To all of you guys out there, please hit the like button, subscribe if you can, and come back. If you're watching this and it's just a video, and if you watched it all the way to this point, man, 2 more minutes to just leave a comment like, you suck or something, do it. I dare you. I mean, it might get my feelings hurt, but
Okay.
I was just gonna end it on that, but that would just be way too awkward.
That would be way too awkward. Yeah. And I think
All right.
also you just used up the time that they would have spent to go like you just killed it. Just killed it right there. Also, I like our little let me just say I like our little blue red I was gonna go like all the way back to Double Dragon. That's how old I am. And then I'm like, oh, there's a more
Red and blue.
recent reference with Halo.
Yeah.
Red versus blue.
Although I think a lot of people wouldn't know that. That's even old.
That's true. Yeah, we're just old. Period. So,
What would be the like most recent? Red and blue.
I mean,
Well, I guess like political stuff.
Oh yeah,
Red state, blue state.
yeah. We're kind of reversed on that there. Yeah. I didn't even think about politics. I was trying. Yeah.
Trying not to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what like in terms of pop culture would be
Red versus
would
blue.
be the most recent. Power Rangers are always out there, but they've got multiple colors and stuff. I don't know, like what else would be. So that's all I got. Double Dragon and Red versus Blue Halo. So and if you don't know what Double Dragon is, look that up. That's going all the way back to my childhood.
I had forgotten about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, as I say, as Judah Buddha, stay zen. It doesn't matter. It's just fantasy. It's just money. For some of you. For some of you, it's not even that. Jared, any final words?
Get those waiver claims in. Good luck on the waiver wire. And we'll be back Saturday
morning
to talk about the Thursday games. And like we'll see if you're either playing Lamar Jackson or you're playing against him.
Because he's got such a nice matchup.
That Thursday game, your fantasy playoff week could either get off to a really good start or a really bad start. Yeah, because 2 days from now.
Real quick, what are the odds though that he just plays like a quarter?
I don't think he plays a quarter. I could see a scenario like if they got up big enough that they turned it over to RG3 for the second half because of his quad. But at least he did say he is going to start. He is going to play.
He says he feels 100%.
Yeah. I mean, I think the later we get in the season here, the more likely it is that something like that could happen. But I would still imagine him playing at minimum, unless he gets hurt, 2.5 quarters at minimum.
I think they put up a fight. Where are they? Are they in?
No,
Baltimore?
they're in Baltimore, and Sam Darnold is atrocious on the road.
Look, on offense, I don't think they're going to do anything, but on defense, they might put up a little fight. They got a good D line, and that's helpful against. No, I'm not saying they're going to win by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. I mean, it's the NFL. I mean, I look back and saw that the thing that was popping out to me from last week was where the Broncos got up on the Texans 38-3. That was the reference in my mind to like, man, just anything can happen in the NFL. So the Jets could beat them. We don't know, but
any given Sunday or Thursday.
Or Thursday night. And especially Thursday night games are weird. Injuries pile up in Thursday night games. So I don't know.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you later.
See you later.